Welcome to The Actor's Choice, where the actors and actresses have a chance to talk about themselves and their careers. Join us now for the next hour as we explore the marvelous industry of acting by actors and actresses from today's exciting show business world. And now, direct from Hollywood, here's your host, Ron Brewington.
Hi, everybody. I'm Ron Brewington, and welcome to The Actor's Choice, brought to you by Photography is an Art, Harvey Brandman, Master Photographer, located at 1307 North San Fernando Boulevard, Burbank, California. Attorney Ron Irwin's book, Haiku, Style, Passion, Art. Author Larry Buford's book, To the Future, Time Travel, Message in a Capsule. State Farm agent Carla Green, and veteran actor Rob Brownstein's Actor Training School and Actor Space. Roll it.
A family moves out from San Francisco. It's a mixed-race family, a black man, a white woman. They have a teenage daughter, and they move into the suburbs of some northeastern town that has a college, and he's an aspiring professor. A family of minstrels moves into the house next door, and they're working on a minstrel show.
What am I supposed to be looking? Oh, wow. Wow.
What is this?
New neighbors? That's great.
What?
What? Isn't it?
What's weird about this?
I don't know. The diversity.
Today we have two guests whose job it is to entertain you. Our first guest is a renowned artistic director, producer, actor, and a veteran of film, television, and stage. During his career, he has produced over 250 episodes of television. He's also founded one of the most exciting theaters in this town, the Matrix Theater. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Joseph Stern.
Hello.
Joe, welcome to The Actor's Choice.
Good morning.
We are pleasure to have you here and an honor. One thing I would say, that you have had a marvelous career. Would you not say that?
Well, I'd let you say it.
What made you want to be an actor? First of all, you start off as an actor. What made you get into that field?
I just was, always from the moment I was in grammar school telling stories at lunchtime, and I was always a natural performer. And then when I got in high school, I acted in all the plays. And when I went to UCLA, in those days, I majored in English. In those days, you could act. They changed the rule after I left because it wasn't fair to the people that were majoring in it. So I did all the plays. It was just a natural thing, Once I gave up trying to be thinking about being a lawyer, then it was all easy. Then I got an audition with the New York Shakespeare Festival in New York, and I got a job for $35 a week holding a spear, and then I got my equity card in Othello with James Earl Jones, and then I had several years of being an actor before I got up one morning and said, that's it. I produced a play or two, and then I said, I'm gonna do this for a living because it's tough to feed a family this way.
Okay. The year was 1967, and there you were with your first IMDb role, Larry Hale, on the TV series Love is a Many Splendid Thing. Remember that?
I do.
At acting. And then, of course, that role was Hollywood or the beginning of their fur. So where did you come from originally?
I was born here in Los Angeles and went to Fairfax High School and UCLA and, local guy.
Got you. Joe, did you ever think that Hollywood was ready for you, or was it the other way around?
Maybe the other way around. I was always a lunch pail guy. I never figured where I'd end up. I always tell actors, put one foot in front of another and take the next job and see where it leads you.
Got you. What an attitude. What an attitude. 1974, you had a few actor roles under your belt, and you scored a good role, Master Sergeant Tarola, on one of the biggest shows in television history, MASH.
Yeah, still get the residuals 40 years later.
That's great. That's great. By 1979, sir, you had gotten 20 actor roles. Great. But something made you become a TV producer. Why did you do that?
Well, I'd always produced plays. I'd produced one in New York, and it was sort of my role among our group of friends and colleagues that I would be the one that would do the producing.
Right.
And I just got up one morning. I'd had a job like 6 weeks ago, and I told my late wife, I said, I'm done. I'm going to get a gonna make a living, and I'm gonna move on. Because when I came out here in '74, I was working on a script which fell apart, and I ended up producing a play, Are You Now or Have You Ever Been, as sort of therapy, and helping a couple of producers out. And then I just said I'm done, And then 6 weeks later I had a job with Dan Curtis, who created Dark Shadows and all that, and I was with him for 5 years and made more money, which today is not a fortune, but more money than I'd ever made. And we started going out to dinner.
Wow. It was great. It was great. I mean, then you got a job in a movie called, well, you said MASH, but you also made your first debut as a producer in a movie called Mr. R's Daughter in 1979.
Yeah, actually, maybe 78 or 79. That was the first thing I ever did, was for Dan Curtis.
Yes.
It was based on a real story about rape in the Los Angeles Times. And I optioned it, and we made the movie with Cloris Leachman.
Well, there you are again, making another change. Cagney and Lacey, 1982, as a producer, 7 episodes. Then Law and Order, 65 episodes. What was your favorite episode with Law and Order? Remember that?
Well, I loved a lot of them. I mean, we did actually, it's interesting because it's African American. We did a thing called, I forget the name of the episode, but it was a ripoff of Malcolm X and Martin Luther King. They put it all together, and we had Joe Morton was in it, and Roscoe Lee Brown and people like that. It was so that was one of my favorites. And then we did one about homophobia called Manhood with Sam Rockwell. I gave a lot of people their SAG cards that were young, like Philip Seymour Hoffman, people like that. They did their first job in Law and Order a long time ago.
All right. Back to Law and Order. That program got you 2 of your 6 Emmy noms and an additional 2 Golden Globes, plus being the EP for the first 3 seasons. Not bad.
Well, put one foot in front of another, and somehow it works out.
But you knew a lot of people in this town by this time. You really knew a lot of people.
Yeah, up to an extent. When I was living in LA, I was going to college, and then I went to New York to be an actor. So I knew some people, but I had to make my way through, the next 30 years of producing and everything. You end up at different studios and different networks, and and end up, producing a lot of different stuff. Some of it is by chance, but usually a lot of political things. I did the first movie about a gay marriage, 2 women,
Yes.
and I made. We did a lot of social things on Law and Order, which are forgotten. We dealt with a lot of great subjects the first year. Kind of scared the network. We did abortion, child abuse, homophobia, rape. That first year of Law and Order was really something. And then it started. They tried to tamp us down a little bit after that. They thought they'd get better ratings. I don't know. Who knew it was going to last 20 years?
Who knew? As a producer, tell folks, what is your job as a producer? And tell them.
It's that job description is different for so many people. Often it's just you own the rights to something and it may pass on to somebody else. My job specifically, and I've been called a dinosaur, is I supervise and make all the choices except for the writing. I help, I give notes. The writers take care of the writing. I'm what they call the non-writing showrunner. I hire all the directors, and I with a casting person, a woman named Suzanne Ryan of New York, who did the first 3 years with me in New York. We do all the casting, and then the editors are in Los Angeles for that show. Other shows are different, and I come in for the final cut. And I've always been left alone pretty much by the writers who run the show. And Dick Wolf left me alone, and I work with Barbara Hall. They trusted me. And then I'm on the set, and I'm there for most of the scenes. And, I put in a full day, but it's ultimately, I sort of become the conscience of any show I'm on for the most part. Everything is subordinate, as somebody once said to me, to the curtain going up. And then you give it over to, film is different than stage, but that's about stage. Somebody once said that to me, as stage manager. But in film, it's life and death each episode. It's just it's a strive for perfection and excellence, but ultimately it's to serve the script.
Yes.
And it's and in many ways to tell the truth. And basically, which I learned doing the double casting thing in the Matrix for 10 or 11 years, that you got to let go at a certain point. Certain point, you got to give it up to the actors give it up to the director, or the director gives it up to the actors, and then the audience comes in. Film's a little different, but yeah, that's my way of writing. I never was a writer, and I don't direct either. So that's, I guess that's why I compensate some way.
Well, then there was this other show that you were the executive producer of, Judging Amy.
Yes.
138 episodes. Wow. I mean, that's a lot of work.
Yeah. Well, the thing about Judging Amy, and again, my role is exactly the same, completely. And I try to make everything a collaboration, whether it be in the theater or in television. I try to create a team spirit, that everybody works together. And I like to delegate also, as well as, get it right. But so Judging, it was totally different than Law and Order, because it was like doing a play every week. It was not about fancy shooting. It was great acting, great writing. And basically you just had to stand back and make sure everybody, did their job. And it was a totally different experience than Law and Order. It was closer to the theater. You had two brilliant actors in Tyne Daly and Amy Brenneman, and brilliant writing. And it was a pleasure. It was like every couple of weeks was opening night.
Wow. Well, let's go back to 1977. It was a damn good year, I know, because there was a lot of good movies. People were doing well. And Joe Stern founded the Matrix Theater. What led you to do that, sir?
Well, that's a funny story. I came back to LA to work on some writing, and I was doing television.
Uh-huh.
I was walking by my old high school, I was born actually 2 blocks from the Matrix Theater. And then, and I was walking down the street, and these guys were building this space that had been a psychological institute or something. And we got friendly and everything. There were 4 of them, and they called it the Matrix. They named it. And I didn't have any money or anything, but I said to them, if you ever decide to get out of this or whatever, give me a call, not knowing what exactly I would do. And I had been producing plays in LA. I did one at the old Odyssey and at the Improv. And then I was making a transition into television. So I knew I wasn't going to be able to, well, anyways, that's what's in 74. So in 77, they called me up and they said, we have to get out. We don't have the money anymore. If you want the theater, now's the time. And I went to my father and I borrowed the money to buy the theater. And he said, how many seats are there in that theater of yours? I said, 99. He said, are you out of your mind? And then I rented back to them for 3 years. I bought the piano and some lights and whatever, because I was going into television then.
Yes.
So the next 3 years I was in television, and then they left in 1980, and then that's when I started in Independence.
Joe, that's a fabulous venue that you have there. Fabulous. I mean, we just showed some pictures of it. And add to this, no producer has been honored in LA theater circles as much as you, over 200 awards. You're a very good man. You're a humble man, but you did a lot of work out there, sir.
Thank you.
Wow. The most, and of course, 40 of those were the LA Drama Critics Circle Awards, the most in history.
Yes.
I did my homework, obviously. You really, when she told me that, when your publicist said that we're going to do an interview together, I said, you don't mess with him. I said, go there, Ron, get your stuff together. I'm saying my sugar honey iced tea, get it together. Tony, would you show us number 13 again, slide number 13? Here's a picture right there, Joe, if you can see that.
Yes, I can.
There's only one thing that caught my eye in that picture besides you. There's a damn casket in there.
Oh, yeah. Well, you saw that show. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, that's my last play I did last year called
Oh
Scrap.
my goodness. My goodness. Wow.
It's streaming now. Anybody can watch it.
Yes. Yes. In 2009, you debuted a new era of multicultural programming at your theater.
Correct.
First of all, what made you make this significant change and at that time?
Well, I've been asked that question a lot. I've always, in my television work, I always was multi-ethnic casting. I did it on Law and Order. I made judges, doctors. On Judging Amy, I did it in terms of storylines. So I've always been involved. And my late wife and I would be the only white people at the inner city theater down in Pico in Vermont or whatever, that was there for a million years. The great playwrights of the 70s, Ron Milner and Ed Bullens. And I guess, my dad was colorblind, and I don't know, it just was part of me. And then, but it's interesting, in the theater, I didn't, because I was working with all my colleagues who were white for the most part, And again, things gestate, and I got up one morning and I said, that's it. I'm going to go. I think race is the most important theme in our lives. And I called all my company together, all white, and said, this is what I'm doing. There'll be some parts of slave owners for you, but that's the best I can do. And a little humor. And then I started having meetings with people, different ethnicities, and Bill Rausch, who now ran the Oregon Shakespeare Festival, and now has got the thing at the 9/11, in New York. They built this big theater. He had done an episode for me because he was friends with Amy Brenneman. He became sort of my consigliere, and we'd meet with people of different ethnicities, and I'd tell them what I wanted to do, and they would be skeptical. I did that for a couple of years, and then one day I decided I'm going to start, and then I just started with I decided that all the plays I were going to do would be totally different, that they weren't going to be really ghetto plays. This is probably the last play. It's probably the first working class play I've done. So I did, and then, I did a variety of different looks at race. It was I wanted to give the audience a cumulative experience, which is peeling the onion. Sort of every production would be a slightly different take. And then I did Arthur Miller's All My Sons, completely multi-ethnic, but it was all by design. I decided what color was going to play what parts. And I ended up doing 6 plays over 9 years. Everybody thinks I've done 50, but I've done 40 others, but whatever. And they ended up 5 of the 6 plays were written by African-American female playwrights. And the directors were mostly African-American. And it just, it kind of just went from, but the basis behind it, which is your question, was I asked everybody, when I called all my actors together, we had a big thing at the theater. I said, I'm going to ask you 2 questions because I wanted to know why I was doing it. I said, and if the answer is what I think it is, this is the reason. I said, number one, when you look out in the audience, how many people of color do you see when you act here in town? The answer obviously is none or 0, at least in my theater. And I said, the other thing, how many people of color do you interact with in your life and in the theater? The answer was very little. And I said, well, that's it. So I'm looking at this as a healing act because I think, as I've said, that race is the most important aspect theme of our life. And obviously things have come to be the way they are today. And so now I'm not being told I'm crazy, so.
As they say, somebody put a hand on you, as they say.
Yeah.
How did the Matrix Theater audience take this new renaissance? The audience.
I think they took it really well. It was the first time, I also said I wanted to change opening night. And it was great to look out in the lobby and over half the people were African-American, mainly, and Latino. And then my regulars who were white, all my friends and ex-actors. So it was very uplifting. That was one of my objectives, was to change the coloration of the audience. And then suddenly, they start people of different ethnicity, mostly African-American, would come to the plays and often be more than half the audience. And it was very healthy, very positive, and then led to some interesting discussions. I mean, I did this play Neighbors, and a couple of people said if I did it after the reading, they'd burn the theater down. And probably actors who weren't right for anything. So that was pretty controversial, And I ended up, getting young playwrights who've gone on to win the, you know, the McKnight, whatever it is, and Pulitzers and everything else. You know, Nataki Garrett runs the Oregon Shakespeare Festival now, the biggest theater in the country, and Brandon Jacobs Jenkins, you know, got the big awards, won Obies, and so I got them when they were young, and now, you know, it's and Jackie Sybil's Drury just won the Pulitzer, and I did her play, the play before that she won the Pulitzer for, called Fairview. So, you know, I was fortunate that way, and so that's been rewarding as well.
You started off, like you said, with Stick Fly in 2009. 2010, you had the Neighbors. I had Neighbors. 2011, Arthur Miller, who used to be married to Miss Monroe.
Yes.
Yes. All My Sons, Grace the Stage. And as this new era continued, how did the actors themselves feel about it?
Well, I think they really loved it. I mean, you know, they took to it. You know, they realized that it was part of a healing act, which is what I had coined or whatever. And my white colleagues were really, you know, very supportive, you know, and whatever I needed them to do, they showed up. And, you know, the spirit was fantastic, you know, and it was a great dialogue between old and young and white and black and brown. People like to talk about it because some of the plays were quite controversial. Not as controversial as they might be today, but, you know, well, you saw Scraps, and that was.
Yes, indeed. And before we leave, I just want to say something about that. In 2019, you played a play, you put Scraps out there. And I think I told you this in the green room. I was sitting there, had a great seat, and this gentleman was sitting next to me, and I looked at him. I said, "Excuse me, sir, you look like Phil Bailey of Earth, Wind, and Fire." He said, "I am Phil Bailey." I just fell out laughing. Like you say, you never know who's sitting in there with you.
No, I did a play called Orphans in '83, and apparently Michael Jackson came with a couple of his, you know, guys, you know, security, whatever it was, and I guess the title meant something to him, but he left at intermission.
Got you. We got a little, just a few minutes of that Scraps. Could you go ahead and run it, please, Tony?
Oh shit! Haven't heard this song in a minute. Remember Forrest used to play this shit out? Played it like it just came out. Played it like he owned the damn shit.
For sure.
Look who it is. Benedict Arnold.
Saying? Get the fucking radio right here. Yo. Hold up. Yo, turn this shit up. I fucking love this song.
Not more than Forrest. Nobody love this shit more than Forrest.
I know this song.
We'll see.
Hey.
Notorious.
Oh, that was Scraps. Marvelous. Had a great time.
It is streaming for free.
Oh, okay. Marvelous. It was a great one. What's next for you, Joe?
Well, you know, we're living in a very difficult time, and all the theaters are closed, and we're meeting. And like I say, we're streaming Scraps now, so people can at least see it who haven't seen it or want to see it again. And we live in that virtual reality right now all over the world, or, you know, and people are trying to figure out a way how they can reopen their theaters with social distancing and all the things that go with it. So right now we'll see. That's the best we can do. The hope is that there'll be a little bit, maybe in the fall, but maybe by January we can open a lot of things up and then decide what the seating arrangement is going to be.
I sure hope so. As they say, where's the address for that place? 7657 Melrose Avenue.
Just 4 blocks east of Fairfax.
All right, sir. Joe, thank you very, very much. It's an honor and a pleasure to have met you today. Thank you. Thank you. This is The Actor's Choice. I'm your host, Ron Brewington. The studio of Harvey Brandman Photography as part is proud to offer you a $100 discount off any photo package valued at $300 or more. Now, Harvey's been in the business for nearly a quarter of a century, and he certainly knows how to take care of his customers. So please give him a call today at 818-954-9294. It's 818-954-9294. You'll be glad you did. And by the way, please tell Harvey that you heard about his offer right here on the Actor's Choice. Haiku, style, passion, heart. It's the latest release from author and attorney Ron Irwin. The book was inspired by the author's first exposure to haiku over half a century ago. Now, this experience produced within him a deep passion to experience Asia, which he later did as a U.S. Marine. The book is available in paperback at lulu.com. Irwin says he'll give 20% of net book sales split evenly between the veterans of foreign wars and Vietnam veterans of America. Book to the Future, Time Travel, Message in a Capsule. It's a book by author Larry Buford. It's a historical and faith-based account of how what we do and follow today will affect us tomorrow. The author also calls it an adventure for those who want to travel back through time. The book is now available in paperback and for only $17.95 from Amazon. Get your copy today. And now a word from State Farm agent Carla Green. Roll it, Tony.
Let me ask you something. What do you see when you look at your home and your car? Do you see a bundle? A combo deal? That's how other insurance companies see them, but a State Farm agent sees so much more. Because the State Farm agent sees your home and your car as more than just four walls and four wheels. They see the things you've worked really hard for. So why not give them the protection they deserve? Let me help you with that. Give me a call. State Farm agent Carla Green, 213-239-9675. I look forward to speaking with you.
Okay, we're back, Ron.
Thanks, Carla. And like a good neighbor, State Farm is there. For more information, call 213-239-9675. That's 213-239-9675. Roll it, Cody. Class at robbreinstein.com or call 323-646-1268. That's 323-646-1268. Thank you. And finally, if you have a product, a service, or a upcoming event that you'd like to see advertised on this program, please call 323-533-1036. That's 323-533-1036. Our prices are very affordable. Thank you. This is the Actor's Choice. I'm your host, Ron Brewington. Roll it.
We are so close. We're so close as if to be breathing the same air. My heart is galloping. It's aching, torn, merely. She rests her head in the crook of my arm and we move together in a nervous embrace.
My next guest is also an entertainer. She started by writing TV series, and now she's a playwright. She's got dozens of plays under her arm. She's been given awards, including the inaugural Gold Medallion in 2019. She's also a member of the Ensemble Studio Theater, the LA and Pacific Resident Theater Writing Units, and the Drama Guild of America. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Wendy Graf. Wendy, thank you so much. Hi, and welcome to the Actor's Choice.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
Oh, it's a pleasure. We have a common publicist. You know who she is.
Yes, I do. Yes, I do. Yay, Lucy Pollock. She's
Lucy
the best.
Pollock. Yeah, Lucy, yes.
She's the best.
Thank you so much. You have done so many things in your career. I understand it's been a long journey for you, but you've been thrilled about it. When did that, or how did that journey start for you?
When did the journey start as me as a playwright?
Yes, ma'am.
Well, I was always, I always was a playwright. I always was a writer. And then I thought I wanted to be an actress. So when it was time for me to apply to college, I wanted to be a theater arts major. My mother said, "Can you sing like Judy Garland? Can you dance like Eleanor Powell? You better forget it and have something to fall back on." So, I foolishly listened, and I was a sociology major. Don't ask me what I ever did with that, nothing. But then I decided to go into education and teach what they used to call emotionally handicapped and educationally handicapped children. So I did that for a while and discovered, oh God, I'm sorry. I don't know how to turn off everything else on I closed down my email. I don't know how to turn off everything else. So I apologize.
We call it a drop check. Just drop it on the floor. It'll shut itself off.
Okay. Anyway, so I was not good at that. I was not a good teacher. But then, so they moved me to just a regular regular classes, 4th, 5th, and 6th grade. And I took over the drama, and the shows. So I started getting back into that again. And then I started going to UCLA Extension, and I actually got a theater arts, what would be a major through UCLA Extension. And, more and more, it was like, this is what I want to do. I don't want to teach little children to be actors and to play the guitar. This is what I want to do. So my husband at the time, we had just gotten married, and he said, "You know what? Go for it now. Go for it. You can substitute teach on the side, but go for it now and finish your training and do what you want to do." So I spent some time being an actress, and again, not a very good one. But I was in a workshop with a wonderful and prominent TV writer producer, and he brought me a stack of scripts from his show, and he said, "Write one of these, you'll make $1 million." So that's how I got into television, and I was into television and writing screenplays that never got sold for a very long time. And then, I stopped working in television for a variety of different reasons, and I became a licensed private investigator because I had worked on Murder, She Wrote. I was a writer on Murder, She Wrote. My husband was a criminal attorney, and he said, he came home one day and he said, my private investigator stinks. He's awful. And I said, "Well, hey, I could do that because I worked on Murder, She Wrote." So I started working for him, and then we found out that what I was doing was completely illegal. So I went to Nick Harris Detective Academy, and I learned how to be a private investigator. And then I had to do 5 years of apprentice work. And then I took the exam, and I got my license. It's like a bar exam that goes on for 3 days. And then I worked for a while as a private investigator. And then in the meantime, as these things always happen, my daughter, who was 14 at the time, was a really good writer. And she went to Idlewild Arts for a summer, and she came back, and at her school, she wrote and produced and directed a play. And I said, "You know what? I better get my ass back to the computer and to the typewriter, because this is what I really want to do." So back in 2001, I went back and I wrote a play, and the rest is history. But unfortunately, it was to be a very good year. I had 4 big productions slated for this year, and then, everything has been put on hold or canceled. So, now I'm trying to figure out what to do, and that's what kind of led me to the virtual world.
Yes.
Like so you said, you did. That's the history of my life.
That's the great history, because working for TV like you did, you learned a lot. You got some experience.
Oh, yeah, but writing for TV is completely different than writing plays. Writing for TV is you're writing someone else's vision. You may not even recognize it by the time you from the time you turn in the script till it's on the screen. And it's more of a producer director's medium, as is film, but theater is a playwright's medium. And I know I like nothing better than sitting in my little office myself in my pajamas, not having to deal with people and just writing my script. So this was a match made in heaven.
Wow. You look like you had a lot of fun. What are some of the subjects that you would like to write about, that you like to write about?
Well, most of my plays are based on, are very serious, and they're based on social, religious, political themes. It's always, all my plays are always about family and identity, but they're all set against a background of either politics, religion, cultural questions. So that's what I mostly like to write about. Those are the questions, I guess, that interest me and that I want to pursue. So that's what I've mostly done. They're all probably very serious dramas, except for one, which is a comedy, but again, there is a political strain to it. But it was so funny that when it was first produced, all the reviewers and press people in Los Angeles was all like, Wendy Graf, who is normally known for very serious political and religious things, has written a comedy. Who knew she was funny? But yeah, these are the questions that swirl around in my head and that I want to try to answer. Although my goal in writing a play is not to answer the question, it's to ask the question.
Good idea.
And I leave it for the audience to go across the street afterwards and have a glass of wine like they used to be able to do and argue it out. I mean, I've had people stop me in the street after a performance, and want to come up and argue with me about my play. And there's nothing I like better than that.
Yes. Well, you and every actor, to anyone associated with this business, can hardly wait till things go back to normal again.
Well, I know. I think that actually when they decided that it wouldn't through the end of the year, it was almost a relief for all of us, because we were all like, sitting on pins and needles. Are they going to cancel my August production? Are they going to not cancel my August production? Are we going to be able to go back and everything? And then once, it was canceled, it kind of cleared the path for us to say, are there any other avenues we can pursue in the meantime? And it left me free. I couldn't write before. I was too on pins and needles. I couldn't write anything new. I was just like caught up with every day looking at the numbers and all that kind of thing, and anything I was inspired by, it just kind of like, because I couldn't stay with it, because we were so distracted. So actually, to have that was kind of a relief in a way. At least it was to me.
Like we said at the beginning of the show, you now have a lot of plays under your arm. Let's talk about some of those plays.
Okay.
Tony, can you look for No Word Guyanese for Me?
No Word in Guyanese for Me.
Right.
That's Anna Kaja, the most wonderful actress. She originated the role. It's probably been my most produced play. It's been produced in a lot of places, and a couple of years ago, it was produced under the auspices of the Women's Theater Festival in Washington, D.C., with a Rainbow Theater Company, which is an LGBT theater company. And that was a wonderful experience. But No Word in Guyanese for me is about an immigrant, and it's about a Muslim, and there's no word for lesbian in the Guyanese dialect. And it's sort of it's her struggle to reconcile her faith and her sexuality. And it's one actress, and she plays 10 parts. And yeah, that was that play. And people were surprised to find out that I was not a Guyanese immigrant. But, I think that's kind of what a writer does. I think a writer can put themselves in the shoes of other characters and other lives, right, and take from their life what's applicable, and just use it in the character.
You did win an award for that play, didn't you?
The GLAD Award, yes.
Yes, ma'am.
I'm very proud of that. I'm so proud of that. Mm-hmm. That was a thrill, and I was just so proud of it. And I was just so proud to be able to be a mouthpiece. My husband always says I'm a mouthpiece for people who don't have a voice. So I was so proud at the time to be a mouthpiece for Muslims, for immigrants, for a gay woman, and the gay, and the struggles that they have within the fundamental communities. It's not the only community that has those kinds of struggles. And I remember somebody saying to me, fundamentalism is fundamentalism. I've written other plays that are kind of I've written plays that are anti-Jewish fundamentalism. I've written plays that have been white evangelical fundamentalism. And I think, we all face that same rigid, horrifying, disgusting roadblocks and obstacles, and they don't want to hear it, and they don't want to learn, and they don't want to have any kind of intelligent conversation about it. It's just like a wall is down.
Yes.
So that's one thing that's really been a thrill for me with some of my pieces, where I've really challenged some communities. I wrote one piece called Behind the Gates, where I really asked some very hard questions about the ultra-Orthodox Jewish community in Israel and here. And I had so many people who were so angry and came out. That's one of the ones where I had people walk out into the street and, shake their finger and, what are you doing for the Jews? And it's bad for the Jews and all that. And how can you do that? And then I had other people who wanted to produce the play, but they wanted me to change the ending, which is, that's the final punch against them. And I said, no, I'm not going to change the ending. If you like the painting, you buy it. You don't ask the artist to change the colors to match your living room. Right. So that's one of the real thrills. I wrote a play called All American Girl, another one that people were outraged over. And the premise of it is, how does an all-American girl become a terrorist? And I was kind of inspired when I wrote it. I don't know if you remember back to the Boston Bombers, but the older brother had a wife who was an all-American girl. And I was fascinated. How did she hook up with these people? How did this happen? So I kind of fictionalized the whole thing. And I sat in the audience every night that I was there. And when the actress walked out with the bomb, and I heard all the gasps in the audience, it was thrilling. It was absolutely thrilling.
Another one of your plays was Closely Related Keys.
Closely Related Keys, yes.
Yes.
That won a lot of NAACP awards for the actresses. That play had a very interesting journey, and that's the play that kind of ultimately broke my heart this year, when it was going to have a very lovely second production opening at the end of August this year, a big equity production. And I was also able to do a rewrite and fix some of the things that didn't work in the first production. But Closely Related Keys, I started out writing that because it was during Iraq, and I thought, what if, that's what usually motivates me. What if someone, a woman in the United States finds out that she has an Iraqi half sister? And, I love family secrets. I always like to write about family secrets and family scandals and how they break open. And, all these things are like pebbles dropping into water and concentric circles through the generations and generations and generations. So I had a first reading of that. Now, I don't know if this is going to be controversial or not, given the current climate, but I had a first reading of that in my writers group, and I couldn't find an actress who I thought could nail the lead character. And there was an actress in my group who I had worked with before, who was an African-American actress. And I was kind of like, well, why does this have to be a white person? And I went into, I did a lot of research, and I knew that there was and probably still is, a very large Black presence in Iraq, in certain towns.
Yes.
And then the sister, who could be the half sister, who could be half Iraqi and half Black. So when this one actress read it, I was like, well, why does this have to be a white family? Why can't this be an African-American family? So I immediately went to an African-American director, African-American actors. And, I wanted to celebrate their culture, and I didn't want it to be like a phony, white person's view of what this should be. And one of the actors who was cast as the father ultimately told me that he was so surprised when he read it, because he thought it was the first play he had ever read by a white playwright where the Black character wasn't just the sidekick to the white guy.
Gotcha.
Anyway, so as the play evolved, it was picked up by a Black theater company, and they did a big long workshop on it, which was wonderful, and developed it. And then finally we had a production, and it was, a Black director, all Black actors, and all through the whole thing, I always referred to them on everything.
Yes.
And it's really kind of sad that it was canceled this August, because I think it echoes a lot of the themes that are going on now, and certainly the education of white people, the listening of white people. And I'm really so sad that it's been canceled, because I feel it would have been appreciated.
Wendy, we've run out of time. Unfortunately, we got to bring you back. There's a lot of things to talk about.
Thank you.
Talk to our publicist, and we'll work that out and get that all straight. But thank you so much for coming down today. Thank you.
Well, I hope I was interesting.
Oh, very, very, very.
And thank you so much for having me.
My pleasure, man. My pleasure.
Be continued.
Indeed, to be continued. And thanks to our sponsors, Harvey Brandman Photography as an Art, Ron Irwin's Haiku, Style, Passion, Heart, Larry Buford's Book to the Future, Time Travel, Message in a Capsule, State Farm agent Carla Green, and Rob Brownstein's Actor Training School and Actor Space. And much, much thanks to our guest today, founder, artistic director, and producer Joseph Stern, and playwright Wendy Graf. And of course, special thanks to our ever-growing audience. Be well. We'll see you next time.